Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Well, we just finished dealing with Eugene Ormandy's, 94 or 96 CD Big Columbia box, part 2. Wow. But there's also his earlier legacy with Philadephia, which just arrived. The RCA Red Seal recordings from 1935 to 1942, with one exception. There was one from 1945, roughly. But this is very, very interesting stuff. 21 CDs, well filled, I must say. Eugene Ormandy began his career in Philadelphia in 1935 with, at least his recording career in 1935, with RCA. And he recorded for RCA until 1942 and then jumped to Columbia. Everything stopped in 1942 because the Musicians Union was having a fight with the record labels and declared a ban on recordings. And so for 3 or 4 years, everything just stopped dead in its tracks. And so we have this rather convenient slice of recorded history from a specific period in time. Now, these were all 78s. They are of 78 sonic quality. They have been excellently remastered, I have to say. I mean, carefully and lovingly, and everything is listenable. I mean, it really is. There isn't anything here that I think is just like awful. You can't hear anything about what's going on, and it just drives you crazy. But they are somewhat limited in dynamic range and things like that. And you just have to get used to it. And once you do, there's some really hot stuff here. Some very, very interesting things. So let's go through it, shall we? Here we are. Again, we have a very nice track listing with fun little notes about what was going on and how they found which masters to use and all that stuff, which you could look at if you want. It's a lovely little booklet. So, CD 1, the Mendelssohn Violin Concerto, the big one, and Spohr's Concerto Number 8, the In Modo di Scena Cantata, his most famous violin concerto with Albert Spalding violin. He was a very well-known violinist back in the day. His style is old-fashioned. It's fun to listen to him phrase. It really is. To hear where he adds little portamenti and ties notes together. And oh my goodness, it's wonderful. And of course, the accompaniments are absolutely terrific. You also get the Paganini First Violin Concerto First Movement, 17 minutes long, in Fritz Kreisler's arrangement with Fritz Kreisler playing. And Kreisler, that's his name, was in good shape. And boy, is that fun. So that's nice. Then we have Beethoven, CD2, Symphony Number 1, a nice, romantic, unexceptional recording. I mean, it doesn't have, it's not going to dazzle you, but it's surprisingly effective. And Schumann's Second Symphony, a lovely performance of that. Both on the same disc, so that's a well-filled CD. Then we get to the meat and potatoes. Yes, Ormandy's specialty, Tchaikovsky Pathétique, a beautiful Pathétique that he recorded 450 times, and the Nutcracker Suite, which he also recorded 450 times. Now, the Nutcracker Suite was remade in 1945 in a performance that's actually somewhat different. In its stresses, in the overture, for example, and some other things. So those are fun to compare. And then you get Rimsky-Korsakov, the church scene from Christmas Eve, the opera arranged by Ormandy, which just goes to show. I mean, he did a lot of that kind of work. He doesn't get credit for being as good an arranger as he was an orchestrator, but he did quite a bit. And some of those things pop up here. Pictures in an Exhibition, not the Ravel version, the one that Ormandy himself commissioned from Lucien Caillet. And that is very, very different in some respects from Ravel's. It begins almost in the distance with the promenades and the winds. And from there, you can hear all of the different thingies that Caillet does. Of course, Ravel's better. I mean, that goes without saying. But it's fun to hear. It's fun to compare these things. It really is. And the couplings, oh my goodness, Liszt Les Préludes, a very exciting version of that, and a smoking, insane Enescu Romanian Rhapsody Number 1, which is unfortunately cut when it gets to the fast bits, probably for 78 RPM purposes. A lot of people cut. I mean, Tchaikovsky always cut it too. You should never cut that piece. It's not long enough to chop a couple minutes out of. There's no reason for it. And besides, the fast music is so much fun. You can hear it go round and round forever and never get tired of it. So, that's unfortunate. But wow, the playing is amazing. And Debussy, Minstrels from Preludes, Book 1, arranged by Charles O'Connell. A little novelty there. CD 5. Oh, there are 2 vocal discs. One devoted to Kirsten Flagstad, singing Beethoven, Weber, and Wagner, and all kinds of stuff like that. And with Eugene Ormandy doing most of it, and George Lang with orchestra doing some of it. And they were very smart to just include the entire Kirsten Flagstad recital. I mean, you really want that. They also have Lawrence Melchior doing Wagner. And let's see, does he do any other goodies? No, it's all Wagner. And it's really, really fun. We also have, Dorothy Maynor. Let's not forget her. She was a wonderful soprano, doing Charpentier, Depuis le Jour, and Debussy, L'Enfant Prodigue, and Bach, Now Let Every Tongue Adore Thee, arranged by Charles O'Connell from the cantata Wachet auf, ruft uns die Stimme. So that's really some classic vocal things that have been released before. I mean, actually, a lot of these things, I have to point out. Let's see, she does who does the Wesendonck lieder? There's some Wesendonck lieders here, yes, with Melchior. Yeah, it's all with Melchior. Well, anyway, the bottom line is, a lot of these things were released on Biddulph. I have some of them, actually, some of the early Ormandy stuff in Philadelphia, and they really, these remasterings are particularly wonderful. Anyway, opera people will definitely want Flagstad and Melchior, and that's fun to have. So here's the actual album, in case you're curious. Yeah. So heavy-duty stuff. Then we've got, oh my goodness, CD 7, Richard Strauss, the Sinfonia Domestica. A very exciting performance. I mean, Ormandy was no nonsense in Strauss, sort of like Strauss was in Strauss. He whips it up to a fury when necessary. He doesn't dawdle over the sort of, schlocky, tacky bits, which is really good. And the final fugue really rips. It's quite exciting. And the Rosenkavalier Waltz Suite. Then CD 8, Harl MacDonald, who lived from 1899 to 1955, an American composer that nobody cares about today, who wrote Symphony No. 1, the Santa Fe Trail. Ooh, what a delicious little bit of Americana that is. And then a very interesting thing from childhood. Excuse me, I got a bit of a cold. From childhood for harp and orchestra. This is a lovely work. It really is. And a big one, too. It's 6, 7, 6. It's 20 minutes long. And it was commissioned by the Philadelphia harpist Edna Phillips, and Harl MacDonald is conducting, actually, in that particular work. Edna Phillips commissioned lots of music to expand the repertoire for the harp, and it would be fabulous if somebody could put together an Edna Phillips celebration of commissioned works and get some enterprising harpist to do a project and re-record all that stuff. I'm just saying, I mean, like, it's really going to happen? Yeah, right. But what a lovely addition to the repertoire this is. And she plays it wonderfully. It's so much fun. Then we get the Cakewalk, the scherzo from MacDonald's Symphony No. 4, and 3 poems on Aramaic themes, which is also very interesting, which actually they call the Hebraic Suite on the disc, but they do numbers 1 and 2, also by MacDonald. So that's a wonderful Harl MacDonald disc, and you ain't going to find any others anytime soon, or easily. Let's put it that way. Then we've got Vivaldi, Concerto for 2 violins in A minor from L'Estro Armonico, Opus 3, number 8. Purcell, Dido and Aeneas Suite, arranged by Lucien Caillet, which is endless fun. Really is delightful. Mozart's first Lodra night music, Divertimento for 2 horns and strings, Koschel 247, and Telemann, the Overture Suite for treble, recorder, strings, and basso continuo, which on 78s was released in mixed up order because of the playing side issue and timings for short sides, but they have reassembled it in its correct order for this performance. And then John Jenkins, his 5-part fantasy in D major, arranged by Caillet, originally for viol consort. How's that for an interesting disc? Wow, yeah. And that combines, a bunch of 78 albums. Then, of course, the Rachmaninoff Piano Concerti numbers 1 and 4, and number 3. Number three, these are classic performances, of course, and they've been very nicely remastered for this set, I have to say. I am proud of them. They sound really good. And you also get the Grieg Piano Concerto with Arthur Rubinstein, a zippy, fresh, and delightful performance of that work. So those are two really fabulous discs. Unfortunately, the second piano concerto, remember, was done with Tchaikovsky. So it's not in this set. And, you know, if they could have included the other Flagstad and Melchior stuff, I think they could have stuffed in the Rachmaninoff second concerto just to complete the set, you know, remastered and all that stuff, just for the fun of it. But okay. You can't argue with the logic, though, that, you know, led them to leave it out. Brahms, oh, baby, the double concerto with Heifetz and Feuermann. Well, that's a classic, right? And Strauss's Don Quixote, also with Feuermann. That's a classic, too. So those are marvelous. And the Brahms Second Symphony, Ormandy did more Brahms, according to the notes here, than any other American conductor. And it shows. I mean, he loved Brahms. He played Brahms fabulously well. His stereo Brahms cycle is gorgeous. It really ought to be included with the great ones. For some reason, it never is. I mean, Ormandy always gets taken for granted, even by me. I mean, just because he did so much. And it's so hard to keep track of it all. You know, I understand that. But when you listen to it and you just go, oh, this is so good. So it's a beautiful Brahms second. The Alto Rhapsody and other songs with Marian Anderson. So that's like important for Marian Anderson people. Strauss, Ein Heldenleben. Oh, yes. Another Ormandy fave. And it's a quick, impactful, very fine performance. Not in the greatest sound, but, you know, we have lots of grotty sounding Heldenlebens. There's Mengelberg from like 1929 with the New York Phil, which is really famous. That was also an RCA, by the way. And you've got this one, and you have Strauss's own, which is lousy. Strauss was such a bad conductor of his own stuff. He was so uninterested. And there's actually a later Mengelberg one, and then there's Fritz Reiner, I think, did it too for Columbia. So we've got Heldenlabels up the wazoo in so-so sound. Doesn't help the piece, frankly, but it's a good performance. I mean, you can't argue with that. And Daphnis and Chloe, Suite Number 2. Yeah, that's fun. Then, of course, disc 15 is Sibelius. Finlandia, from the Lemminkainen suite, The Swan of Tuonela and Lemminkainen's Return. That's another insane performance. Really hot with all of Ormandy's little percussive additions, the tam-tams and other things, which aren't as vivid as on some other of his older recordings. Remember, he did some of this stuff in Minneapolis, the Sibelius things too. It's the First Symphony particularly. Well, here it is again. It hasn't quite been juiced up as much as he would later, you know, with the harps and things that he would later do in his stereo remake on Columbia, which is still his best. Sibelius first on the whole, but this is no slouch. So that's nice to have. Hindemith. Here's something interesting. Mathis der Mahler. You know, people sort of think that Mathis der Mahler is the, Matisse der Mahler, if you want to say it properly, is the you know, consolation prize for people who don't usually do contemporary music. But Ormandy did quite a bit of contemporary music. And you got to remember, when he recorded this, which was in 1940, I think it was. It was released in 42, but it was recorded in like 44, 39. The piece was only 6 years old in 1939. It had just been composed, and of course Hindemith recorded it himself with the Berlin Philharmonic, a performance of absolutely no special distinction whatsoever. This one is much better. And you've got Menotti, Amelia Goes to the Ball Overture, the first recording ever of music by Menotti, the Barber First Essay for Orchestra, Roy Harris's 3 pieces for orchestra, and 2 Sousa marches. How's that for an interesting disc of contemporary music that no one else has touched since? I mean, except for the Hindemith, of course. Well, and Sousa, but, you know, and the Barber. Never mind what I just said. You know, that American music that was new. Thank you. Why don't I just say it? That was new when it was composed and when he recorded it. So, yeah. Then there's, of course, a Bach disc. Oh, yes. Ormandy's Bach was as cool as Tchaikovsky's Bach. It really was. He did his own orchestrations of some of these things, but we got 2 Lucien Caillé arrangements, the Prelude and Fugue in F minor, and Jesu, Joy of Man's Desiring. And then we've got the Prelude in E major, arranged by Caillé, conducted by Tchaikovsky. That's from the Partita number 3 for violin. The Prelude and Fugue in B minor, and My Dearest Jesus, after the chorale Herzliebster Jesus, which means my dearest Jesus. So that's from the St. Matthew Passion, arranged by various people. And then to top off your Bach Fest, we have Strauss waltzes. They, of course, belong with Bach. I mean, they go so well together. The Voices of Spring, Vienna Blood, and the Emperor Waltz, all of them lovely. Tchaikovsky, here's the other nutcracker on CD 18, and it's coupled with a really, really exciting Fifth Symphony. A wonderful performance of the Fifth Symphony, beautifully done. I mean, that was a Tchaikovsky, an Ormandy specialty as well, as we all know. And CD 19, okay, he did a bunch of things for this World's Greatest Music Series anonymously. I mean, they were like given out free by gas stations or something. You know, it was one of those things. So he did Beethoven's Fifth and Schubert's Unfinished, both perfectly solid performances, but, you know, not of any particular distinction. I mean, you know, they're good, well-played performances. Mozart, Symphony number 40, Bach, Brandenburg Concertos 2 and 3. Those are interesting. It's always interesting to hear how people played that stuff back in those days, especially the third, because it had viols and things, and you couldn't, nobody played those. And another Brahms 2, which is not quite as good as the formal Brahms 2 that he released 9 months later, which I've already mentioned. But still, it's a very similar performance. And that is what you get on these 21 discs. Some first-class music making, some exciting discographic history, a bunch of novelties that you're not going to find easily anywhere else. And it shows an exceptionally wide range from Ormandy, a generalist conductor. Everything, think about it, from viol music by John Jenkins through Bach to Mozart, Beethoven, Mendelssohn, Schumann, Brahms, all the way up to Hindemith and Harl MacDonald and Harris and Barber. And I mean, wow, what an amazing box. Think about it. Really an amazing box of things that you could get in just that tiny, tiny 7-year period from 1935 to 1942. I think that's kind of remarkable. It speaks well of musical culture generally, don't you think? So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.